Hello, I'm Nobby Clark, welcome to my workshop. Just to show you a slightly different view of my workshop for a change. This is the far end of the workshop, and on the bench here I've got my Chinese mini lathe next to, you can just see the corner of it here, my mini mill. I bought the mini lathe just before I had my workshop built, and I've still got the original date label on it. I bought this on February the 13th 2016. I try and put a date label on all the larger items in the workshop just as a reminder of when I got them. There's a date on the mini mill, the Myford lathe, the bench drill, all the other bits, the larger bits of machinery that I've got. When I bought the mini lathe, it was in, I think I've mentioned in a previous video, it was in pretty sad condition. I bid on this on eBay, and I think a lot of people were turned off bidding on it because it did look in very sad condition. The pictures showed it sitting in a garage workshop with all sorts of stuff piled all over it. The seller obviously didn't bother to tidy things up to make it look a little bit better and just wipe it over, but I took a risk on it that it was going to be okay, which it was in the end. So when I got it back, in the period waiting for my workshop to be delivered and built, I gave it a good clean up, and I used this for quite a while, up until the point that I got the Myford lathe, where this one doesn't get as much use now, but it's so handy to have a second lathe, because if you've got a project in the chuck of the Myford lathe and you want to break away to do something else, I've got a second lathe to do those operations on. So this does get used on and off, but what I want to do is to do a lot more on this lathe now. So recently I gave it another really good thorough clean up, and what I decided to do was to repaint the chip guard which sits at the back here. This is obviously the reverse side of the lathe. The operating side is over here. So you can see the back part of the lathe, the controls here for the low and high running range, just by moving that lever across changes the speed range. This is a variable speed lathe. You've got a control on the front here to vary the speed, and next to this lever you've got another lever here which engages the lead screw. I think sort of rather inconveniently placed on the back on the Myford lathe. This is on the front, but I guess with the design of this and the control box on the front here, there's no room for this on the front anywhere, so that I suppose has to be mounted here. But it's not something, I don't change the speed of the lathe very often. It gives me a good working range in low. One problem I had some while back is that the tachometer, which gives you the running speed of the spindle, stopped working. It was very annoying, because I was relying on that so much to know what the running speed of the lathe was. On the Myford, it's a motor running through two pulley belts, so you actually know what speed the lathe is actually running at. That's all on a data plate on the top of the Myford lathe. So what I did here, well, it's actually some time back, I bought one of these cheap tachometers. I think I actually ordered this from China, and again I dated when I installed it. That was in June 2019, so I've been using this for quite a long time now. And it uses a Hall sensor, and I mounted that on this back cover, which is just a plastic cover which covers up the change gears and the end of the spindle. and I found a position to drill a hole in here, mount the hall sensor in, and it reads off a circular plate which is attached around the rear part of the spindle, and this works beautifully. When I installed this, I'd been using the lathe occasionally, and I must have knocked the top plate here, and the the tachometer on here started working again. But I found it was very unreliable. It would just keep switching on and off. So I guess there's probably a loose contact somewhere in. Well, take that bit off. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. So there's obviously a loose contact inside here somewhere. I'm not going to attempt to try and find what the problem is or fix it, because I know nothing about electronics at all, and I don't want to mess around with any of the wiring inside of this control box. That bit of plastic, by the way, is just a bit I cut to go over the top of that display panel originally, so that oil and swarf and chips and things wouldn't damage this this cover here. So that just, it was actually taped on, but that just stays on the top there to protect it. Originally I had this mounted on a shelf above my tool rack here. Well, that was fine, not a problem, but what I've decided to do is to mount that over the chip guard which sits along the back here, and you'll see the chip guard is missing because I took that off to repaint it. I did paint it well, quite a few years ago, because it was in a pretty poor state when I got the lathe, like the rest of the lathe. So I cleaned it all up and gave it a few coats of spray paint, but that didn't seem to last very long, so I thought I'd try and make a better job of it this time. So I took the chip guard off and again cleaned it all up and put a few coats of sort of an undercoat on it, and I sprayed it with a metal protective paint. So I'm hoping this is going to be a lot more durable than what I had on it before. So that basically mounts on the back here, and that, you know, it stops some of the chips from flying over the back. Some of them land in here, and you can just sort of sweep along the bottom, get all the chips off the back there, and that's held on with a series of screws. There's drilled holes along here. There's 4 there, and there's one up the side here that hold this chip guard in place. You see I've got a couple of screw holes here. I mean, originally I had a piece of wood mounted on the back here, and I used to store up, when this would obviously be that way around when I swing the lathe round, and I used to keep all the tools in holes on the back there. But I'm going to do something slightly differently this time. But what I'm going to do is mount the this tachometer display sort of here somewhere, so it's contained more closely to the lathe itself, so I'll be able to see that a lot easier. I've just got to fabricate some form of bracket to mount that on the back. So that I think it's going to be a slightly neater solution for that. The one thing I did add to the lathe almost straight away was a quick change tool post. One of my friends said if you get a lathe, that's the first thing you must do, is get a quick change tool post. He said it will save you so much time in changing tools over. It did come with the older style 4-way tool post on here, which I have used, but I found it a little bit more difficult. It's nice to have all the tools mounted in it and you can just swing it around, but it's setting the tools up on that is far more difficult than it is on this. This is much easier to set tool heights if you have one of these, and this is probably about the cheapest one you could possibly buy for it, but it does work well, so no complaints there at all. There's a box here, this is a switch which is attached to this arm, which normally has a guard which goes over the top of the chuck, so that while the chuck is turning and you're cutting, the guard basically protects you from any chips that are flying up towards you. The guard itself wasn't on the lathe when I got it. That was missing. I did fabricate another one, which sort of worked okay, but I just found it was a bit of a nuisance. I don't have a chuck guard on the Myford lathe, and that's not up to now proved to be a problem. So I took the chip guard off, and I just keep that down, which keeps that switched on. So the lathe will turn straight away. All your other controls are on the front here. Your forward, this has a reverse as well, forward and reverse. You can't really see it. You've got an off and on switch here, and an emergency push button on the top here that you can bang down to stop the machine running. So there we are. In the past I did a video on the lathe and went through a lot of bits and pieces about it, but I just thought that I've got to do this job anyway, and I thought, well, I'll just record a little video on it and just show you what I'm doing. Basically, I'm just doing this in between a project I'm working on in the workshop at the moment. Oh, one other thing, I don't know whether I'd show this, but you see there's a couple of little screws here. This is the position that you would normally mount a moving steady. That would be mounted on here, so that would obviously travel with the carriage of the lathe. And what I did, I've got to sort of put that back on again. I just made a little plastic plate that goes in here, held on by those two screws, and that catches a lot of the chips on here and stops them from building up on the ways of the lathe. If I run that along, I made this so that if I run that along, and that goes well, right up to this face of the headstock, it's closer than you would ever use it while you're machining, and your machining position is going to be, quite a bit further back, so there's plenty of room there. So in that position, it's catching a lot of the chips, so that does help to sort of keep the ways of the lathe a little bit cleaner as well. That's quite a good idea. The only other thing that I did fairly early on is that something I did find is that the tailstock lock here is not very good. If you're drilling with quite large drills, the pressure of the drill going into the work tends to push this back. So I picked up a tip from another YouTuber, Steve Jordan, who made this little, if you can, this little device. You can probably just about see it. It's basically, when I made mine out of all out of brass, there's a brass bar here with another piece of brass underneath the ways, and that's just locked with a single bolt, so that once you've got the headstock in position, the tailstock rather, you can bring that behind and lock that, and that will stop the tailstock from pushing back. That works really well. So it's quite a neat little accessory to make. If you've got a mini lathe yourself and find that problem, that's quite a useful thing to have on it. Well, anyway, that's about it from me. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the chip guard on the back here, and then very, very carefully swing the lathe round. I mean, this is actually very, very heavy, One of my sons helped me carry this into the workshop. It's quite a weight, and at my age now I'm actually finding it very, very difficult to move great big heavy things like this around now. I don't have the strength that I used to have in my youth. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. It's perhaps a little bit trivial, but I thought I'd just share with you what I'm doing here in the workshop. So thanks again to all the subscribers to the channel, and thanks again for all the nice comments. I've had some really nice comments just recently. It's really sort of giving me the incentive really to do what I'm doing in the workshop as well. It's quite comforting. So that's it from me. So bye for now. Bye bye.